The Velaran Empire meets humanity. General Thrax stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominator, watching the yellow star grow larger on the main screen. His purple scales glittered under the ship's lights, and his forearms moved with practiced precision as he reviewed the latest intelligence reports. The Velaran Empire had been expanding across the galaxy for over 2,000 years, and every new system they discovered followed the same pattern. They arrived, they conquered, they moved on. This system, designated Sol 3 by their scouts, should be no different. The third planet showed signs of a young civilization, barely capable of space travel. Their ships were primitive metal constructs that used chemical propulsion. Their weapons were crude projectile launchers, and their military tactics were simple and predictable. The Velarans had faced similar species hundreds of times before. "General," called out Navigation Officer Krell, his voice carrying the typical Velaran tone of superiority. "We are approaching the outer planets of the system. Our sensors detect several small outposts on the moons of the gas giants." Thrax nodded, his reptilian eyes studying the tactical display. The humans, as they called themselves, had established mining colonies throughout their solar system. It was actually impressive for such a primitive species, but it would make their conquest more interesting. Instead of simply destroying one world, they would have the pleasure of crushing multiple human settlements. "Begin with the furthest outpost," Thrax ordered. "Standard protocol. Demand surrender, then destroy any resistance. These humans will learn quickly that defying the Velaran Empire is futile." The Dominator was a massive vessel, over 3 kilometers long and bristling with weapons that could crack planets. It was accompanied by 20 smaller ships, each one more powerful than anything the humans had ever built. The Velaran fleet moved toward Titan, Saturn's largest moon, where intelligence reports indicated a significant human mining operation. Commander Sarah Chen was having a quiet morning reviewing extraction reports when the alarm started screaming throughout the Titan colony. She rushed to the command center, her coffee mug forgotten on her desk, and found her staff staring at screens filled with red warning indicators. "What's the situation?" Sarah demanded, her voice calm despite the chaos around her. "Unknown vessels approaching from the outer system," reported Lieutenant Torres, her fingers flying over the sensor controls. 21 ships, all of them massive. "They're not responding to our communication attempts." Sarah studied the sensor readings, her mind racing. The approaching ships were unlike anything in the human fleet database. They appeared to be made of some kind of crystalline material, and their energy signatures were off the charts. This was first contact with an alien species, and it didn't look friendly. "Get me a line to Earth Command," Sarah ordered. "Priority Alpha. And start evacuating non-essential personnel to the shelters." Dr. Marcus Webb was in his laboratory when the evacuation order came through. As the colony's chief scientist, he had been studying some unusual energy readings from the outer system for the past week. Now he understood what they meant. He grabbed his research data and headed for the command center, knowing that his knowledge might be crucial in the coming hours. The Velaran fleet took position around Titan, their ships forming a perfect battle formation that had been used successfully in 1,000 previous conquests. General Thrax activated the communication system, preparing to deliver the standard surrender demand that had worked on every other primitive species they had encountered. "Humans of the Titan settlement," Thrax's voice boomed across all frequencies. "I am General Thrax of the Velaran Empire. Your system now belongs to us. Surrender immediately, and you will be allowed to serve the Empire as slaves. Resist, and you will be destroyed." Sarah Chen appeared on the alien general's screen, her expression calm and determined. Thrax was mildly surprised by her composure. Most primitive species either fell to their knees in terror or began screaming threats. This human female simply looked at him with steady eyes. "General Thrax," Sarah said politely, "I'm Commander Sarah Chen of the Titan colony. We appreciate your offer, but we're going to have to decline. This is our home, and we don't plan on leaving." Thrax's 4 eyes widened in astonishment. In 2,000 years of conquest, no primitive species had ever refused the Empire's generous offer of surrender. They usually begged for mercy or tried to negotiate. This human was actually turning him down as if he had asked her to dinner. "You refuse." Thrax sputtered. "Do you not understand what you face? We have conquered 800 worlds. Our weapons can destroy your entire moon. You have no chance of victory." Sarah shrugged. "Maybe not, but we're going to try anyway. That's what humans do." The transmission ended, leaving Thrax staring at a blank screen. In the silence that followed, his bridge crew exchanged worried glances. They had never seen their general so speechless. "Sir," ventured weapons officers in, "should we begin the bombardment?" Thrax nodded slowly, still trying to process what had just happened. "Target their primary installations. Show them what happens to those who defy the Empire." The Velaran ships opened fire, their energy weapons lighting up the space around Titan with brilliant flashes of destruction. The human colony's shields flared and sparked under the assault, but something strange happened. Instead of collapsing immediately, the shields began to adapt, their frequency shifting to deflect the incoming energy blasts. "Impossible," muttered Science Officer Vex, studying his instruments. "Their shields are learning from our attacks." On Titan, Dr. Marcus Webb was frantically working at his computer terminal, making real-time adjustments to the colony's defensive systems. His research into alien energy signatures had given him crucial insights into how their weapons worked, and he was using that knowledge to modify the shields on the fly. "Sarah," he called out over the noise of exploding consoles, "I can keep the shields up for maybe 20 more minutes. Their weapons are powerful, but they're not very adaptable. If we can change our defensive frequency faster than they can adjust their weapons, we might have a chance." Sarah nodded, her mind already working on the next phase of their defense. The colony had never been designed for military action, but humans had a talent for making weapons out of anything available. "Torres, get me a status report on the mining equipment, and contact Captain Stone in the patrol ship." Captain Riley Stone was already suiting up for combat when Sarah's call came through. Her ship, the Defiant, was a small patrol vessel designed for asteroid mining operations, but Riley had spent years modifying it with every upgrade she could find. She was known throughout the colony for her reckless flying and her refusal to back down from any challenge. "Commander Chen," Riley's voice crackled over the communication system. "I'm ready to launch. What's the plan?" "We're going to show these aliens what happens when they threaten our home," Sarah replied. "Use the mining charges in the cargo bay. I want you to get close enough to their ships to cause some damage." Riley grinned, her hands already moving over the launch controls. "Now you're talking my language." General Thrax watched in growing confusion as the small human ship launched from Titan's surface. It was tiny compared to his massive fleet, barely large enough to carry a crew of 5. What could one small vessel hope to accomplish against the might of the Velaran Empire? The Defiant moved through space with a grace that surprised the Velaran commanders. Instead of flying in the predictable patterns they expected from primitive species, the human ship twisted and spun through their formation like a dancer, avoiding weapons fire with impossible precision. "Target that ship," Thrax ordered. "All weapons." 20 Velaran vessels turned their guns on the tiny human craft, filling space with enough energy to destroy a small moon. But Riley Stone was already somewhere else, her ship phasing in and out of the weapon's fire like a ghost. She had been flying in the asteroid fields around Saturn for years, dodging chunks of rock and ice that moved faster than any weapon. These alien ships were powerful, but they were also slow and predictable. The Defiant closed the distance to the nearest Velaran ship, a medium-sized cruiser that was focusing its fire on Titan's surface. Riley had loaded her cargo bay with mining charges, explosive devices designed to crack open asteroids for mineral extraction. She had also made some modifications of her own. "This is for threatening my home," Riley muttered, releasing the charges directly into the alien ship's engine ports. The explosion that followed was unlike anything the Velerans had ever seen. The mining charges had been designed to fracture rock, but when they detonated inside the cruiser's engine systems, they created a chain reaction that tore through the ship's hull like paper. The vessel spun out of control, its crew scrambling for escape pods. "Impossible," Thrax whispered, watching one of his ships die to a creature he had dismissed as primitive. How can they be so effective with such basic technology? On Titan, Dr. Marcus Webb had been analyzing the alien ship's energy signatures, looking for weaknesses. What he found amazed him. The Veleran technology was incredibly advanced, but it was also incredibly rigid. Their ships, weapons, and shields all operated on fixed frequencies and parameters. They had become so comfortable with their technological superiority that they had forgotten how to adapt. "Sarah," he called out excitedly, "I think I understand something about these aliens. Their technology is amazing, but it can't change. They've been using the same designs for so long that they don't know how to deal with anything new or unexpected." Sarah nodded, her mind racing with possibilities. "What about our mining equipment? Could we use it as a weapon?" Marcus grinned. "Better than that. I can modify our entire mining operation to become a weapons platform. Give me 10 minutes. Captain Riley Stone was having the time of her life, dancing through the Veleran fleet and causing chaos with her modified mining ship. Every time the aliens tried to target her, she was already moving to her next position, her ship's systems adapting to their weapons patterns in real time. "These guys are good at destroying things," Riley reported to the colony. "But they're terrible at hitting moving targets. It's like they've never fought anyone who fought back." General Thrax was beginning to understand that his intelligence about humans had been catastrophically wrong. These creatures were not the primitive savages his scouts had described. They were something else entirely, something that defied every assumption the Veleran Empire had made about lesser species. "Sir," reported Weapons Officer Zinn, his voice shaking, "we've lost 3 ships to a single human vessel. The mining colony's shields are still holding, and their weapons are somehow getting stronger." Thrax stared at the tactical display, watching his perfect formation fall apart under the assault of creatures that shouldn't have been able to threaten a single Veleran ship. The small human vessel continued to dart between his ships, leaving explosions in its wake, while the colony below seemed to be turning its entire mining operation into a weapons platform. Massive drilling equipment was being retooled to fire concentrated beams of energy at his ships. Mining charges were being launched from electromagnetic catapults designed to move asteroids. The humans were turning their entire civilization into a weapon, and they were doing it with technology that was centuries behind Veleran standards. "What manner of creatures are these?" Thrax muttered, his hands trembling as he watched another of his ships fall to human ingenuity. Dr. Marcus Webb had successfully modified the colony's main drilling laser to fire concentrated energy bursts at the alien ships. The weapon wasn't as powerful as the Veleran guns, but it was precise and adaptable, able to target weak points in their hulls with devastating accuracy. "Target their shield generators," Sarah ordered. "If we can drop their defenses, Riley can finish them off." The mining laser fired, its beam cutting through space to strike a Veleran destroyer precisely where its shield emitter was located. The alien ship's defenses flickered and died, leaving it vulnerable to attack. Riley Stone didn't waste the opportunity. Her ship swooped down on the defenseless vessel, releasing a full load of mining charges into its hull. The explosion lit up the sky around Titan, and another Veleran ship joined the growing field of debris. "This is madness," Thrax whispered, watching his fleet being systematically destroyed by creatures that should have been begging for mercy. "They fight like wild beasts, but with the cunning of machines. What are these humans?" The answer came from an unexpected source. The colony's communication system crackled to life, and Dr. Marcus Webb's voice filled the bridge of the Dominator. "General Thrax," Marcus said calmly, "we're just getting started. You came here expecting to find helpless primitives, but you found something else. You found humans, We don't have your advanced technology, but we have something you lost a long time ago. We have the ability to adapt, to change, to turn anything into a weapon when we need to protect our home." Thrax stared at the communication screen, his four eyes wide with a mixture of fear and fascination. "You are not like other species. You fight without honor, without rules. We fight to survive." Sarah Chen's voice joined the conversation. "And we fight to protect the people we care about. That's what makes us human." The battle continued for another hour, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. The Velaran fleet, designed to crush primitive civilizations through overwhelming force, was being systematically destroyed by human creativity and determination. Ship after ship fell to mining equipment turned weapons, to small patrol craft loaded with explosives, to shields that learned and adapted faster than their weapons could adjust. When the fighting finally ended, General Thrax found himself alone on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the wreckage of his once mighty fleet. 15 ships destroyed, 3 more heavily damaged, and only 2 still fully operational. The humans had achieved the impossible, defeating a force that should have been unstoppable. "This is General Thrax to all remaining vessels," he transmitted on the fleet frequency. "We are withdrawing immediately. Set course for the nearest Imperial base." As the surviving Velaran ships fled toward the edge of the solar system, Thrax continued to stare at the tactical display. The humans had not pursued them, content to let them leave with their tails between their legs. But the message was clear. Humanity was not a species to be trifled with. "Sir," ventured Navigation Officer Krell, "should we report this to Imperial Command?" Thrax nodded slowly. "Yes, and make sure they understand that these humans are not primitive savages. They are something far more dangerous. They are creatures who turn everything around them into a weapon, who fight with their minds as much as their hands, who refuse to surrender even when faced with impossible odds." He paused, his voice dropping to a whisper. "They are beasts, but not the kind we expected. They are human beasts, and the galaxy will never be the same when humans show their true nature." 3 months had passed since the humiliating defeat at Titan, and Supreme Admiral Vorthak was not pleased. The ancient Velaran leader stood before the Empire's High Council, his scaled hide bearing the scars of 1,000 battles across the galaxy. In his 400 years of military service, he had never heard a report like the one General Thrax had delivered. "Explain to me again," Vorthak hissed, his voice echoing through the crystalline chamber, "how a primitive species with chemical rockets and metal projectiles destroyed 15 of our finest warships." General Thrax stood at attention, his proud bearing somewhat diminished by the memory of his defeat. "Supreme Admiral, the humans are not what our intelligence reported. They possess an ability we have not encountered before. They adapt their technology in real time during combat. Their shields learn to counter our weapons. Their mining equipment became artillery. Their cargo ships became bombers." The council members whispered among themselves in the ancient Velaran language, their words filled with disbelief and concern. The Empire had ruled the galaxy for millennia precisely because no primitive species had ever posed a serious threat to their technological superiority. "This is impossible," declared Councillor Nexus, the Empire's chief scientist. "Primitive species follow predictable patterns. They use basic weapons, simple tactics, and surrender when faced with superior force. It is the natural order." Thrax activated a holographic display showing the battle at Titan. The Council watched in silence as human vessels darted between Velaran ships like insects, delivering devastating attacks with weapons that should not have been capable of penetrating their shields. "Observe their movement patterns," Thrax pointed out. "No other species fights like this. They do not follow standard military doctrine. They improvise, they create, they turn weakness into strength. When we destroyed their primary weapons, they built new ones from mining equipment. When we targeted their ships, they disappeared into asteroid fields and struck from unexpected angles." Supreme Admiral Vorthak studied the hologram with growing unease. The small human ships moved with a fluid grace that reminded him of predators he had encountered on wild planets, creatures that hunted by instinct and cunning rather than overwhelming strength. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Admiral Catherine Torres was preparing for the inevitable return of the Veloran Empire. The victory at Titan had bought them time, but intelligence reports indicated massive fleet movements throughout Veloran space. They were coming back, and next time they would bring everything they had. Status report, Catherine demanded as she entered Earth's primary military command center, a facility buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. The chamber buzzed with activity as hundreds of technicians and officers worked around the clock to prepare humanity's defenses. Colonel David Park looked up from his tactical display, his face grim. "Admiral, we're tracking a Veloran force of over 300 ships heading toward our system. They'll arrive in approximately 6 weeks." Catherine nodded. She had expected this. The Titan victory had been achieved through surprise and improvisation, but the aliens would not make the same mistakes twice. This time, humanity would need to reveal capabilities they had kept hidden for decades. "Activate Protocol 7, Catherine ordered. "It's time to show them what Earth's real military looks like." Dr. Elena Rodriguez was working in her laboratory when the activation order came through. As head of the Quantum Defense Initiative, she had spent 15 years developing technology that pushed the boundaries of human understanding. Her work had been classified at levels that most government officials didn't even know existed. Finally, Elena muttered, her fingers flying over control panels that had never been used outside of simulations. "Time to see if this stuff actually works." The Quantum Defense Initiative had been born from a simple premise. If humanity ever encountered hostile alien life, conventional weapons would likely be insufficient. The project had developed technology based on theoretical physics that most scientists believed was impossible. Quantum manipulation devices, reality distortion fields, temporal acceleration chambers, and weapons that could strike targets across multiple dimensions simultaneously. Captain Jack Morrison was loading the final components into his ship when the orders arrived. The Phantom was unlike any vessel in the official human fleet. It appeared to be a standard fighter craft, but hidden beneath its conventional hull were systems that could manipulate space-time itself. Jack and his squadron were part of Earth's most classified military unit, the Reality Strike Force. "All units, this is command," came the voice through his helmet communicator. "The Velorans are returning with everything they have. Time to show them why humanity survived the Ice Age." Jack grinned, his hands moving over controls that would have been incomprehensible to the aliens who had dismissed humans as primitive. "Copy that, Command. Phantom Squadron is ready to hunt." Back in Veloran space, Supreme Admiral Vorthak was addressing the largest fleet ever assembled in the Empire's history. 300 ships of various classes, from small destroyers to massive dreadnoughts capable of cracking continents. The finest technology the galaxy had ever produced, manned by the most experienced warriors in known space. Warriors of the Empire. Vorthak's voice boomed across the fleet communication system. "We go to face an enemy unlike any we have encountered before. These humans fight with cunning and desperation, turning their weakness into weapons. But we will not underestimate them again. We will bring such overwhelming force that their creativity cannot save them." The fleet jumped to hyperspace, carrying with it the pride and fury of an empire that had never known true defeat. They expected to find the same small mining colonies and patrol ships they had faced at Titan. They were in for a surprise. General Thrax stood on the bridge of his new flagship, the Vengeance, watching the swirling patterns of hyperspace flow past the viewports. This time would be different. This time they would not be caught off guard by human unpredictability. They had brought enough firepower to sterilize every planet in the Sol system. "General," reported his new tactical officer, "we are approaching the target system, dropping to normal space in 30 seconds. Thrax nodded, his four hands clenched into fists. "All ships, prepare for immediate attack. I want every human installation destroyed within the first hour." Show them the price of defying the Empire. The Velaran fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, their ships spreading into perfect formation for the assault on Earth. But something was wrong. Where they expected to find empty space patrolled by primitive human vessels, they instead encountered a sight that defied explanation. "What is that?" whispered Science Officer Kex, staring at his sensor readings. Surrounding Earth were structures that should not have existed. Massive orbital platforms that dwarfed the largest Velaran ships, their surfaces bristling with weapons that energy readings couldn't properly analyze. Space stations that seemed to fold in on themselves geometrically, existing in multiple dimensions simultaneously. And everywhere, human ships that bore no resemblance to the crude vessels they had encountered at Titan. Admiral Catherine Torres watched the alien fleet's arrival from her command station aboard the orbital fortress Defiance. The structure was 5 kilometers long and packed with technology that represented the absolute pinnacle of human achievement. Around her, dozens of similar installations waited in perfect silence. "Ma'am," reported Communications Officer Lisa Park, "the alien fleet has dropped out of hyperspace. 300 ships, just as intelligence predicted." Catherine nodded calmly. "Open a channel to their flagship. Let's say hello." Supreme Admiral Vorthak's image appeared on the main screen of the Defiance, his reptilian features twisted with confusion and growing alarm. Behind him, other Velaran officers stared at displays showing the impossible structures surrounding Earth. "I am Admiral Catherine Torres of the Earth Defense Force," Catherine said politely. "Welcome back to our solar system, Admiral Vorthak. I trust you remember what happened to your scouts at Titan." Vorthak's 4 eyes narrowed. "Impossible. Our intelligence showed no such installations around your world. Where did these structures come from?" Catherine smiled. "We built them. Humans are good at building things, especially when we're motivated. Your first visit was very motivating." The truth was more complex than Catherine let on. The orbital defenses surrounding Earth had been under construction for over 20 years, hidden from detection by advanced stealth technology. Humanity had always known that contact with hostile aliens was possible, and they had prepared accordingly. "Surrender now," Vorthak demanded, trying to regain his composure. "We have brought 300 ships. Your clever tricks will not save you against such overwhelming force." 300 ships, Catherine mused. "That's interesting. We were expecting more." Before Vorthak could respond, space around the Velaran fleet began to shimmer and distort. Human ships began appearing from nowhere, materializing out of what seemed to be empty space. But these were not the crude vessels the aliens had faced before. These ships moved through dimensions, phased in and out of reality, and bristled with weapons that bent the laws of physics. Captain Jack Morrison's Phantom was among the first to decloak, its quantum displacement drive allowing it to appear directly behind a Velaran destroyer. "Target acquired," he reported calmly. "Engaging with reality distortion weapons." The weapon Jack fired didn't travel through space in any conventional sense. Instead, it reached across multiple dimensions simultaneously, striking the alien ship from angles that shouldn't have existed. The destroyer's shields, designed to deflect energy and projectiles, were completely useless against an attack that bypassed 3-dimensional space entirely. "Impossible," breathed Vorthak, watching one of his ships simply cease to exist. "What manner of weapons are these?" Dr. Elena Rodriguez was monitoring the battle from her command center, her quantum manipulation devices working flawlessly. "Admiral Torres," she reported, "quantum displacement fields are stable. We can maintain reality distortion for approximately 6 hours." The battle that followed was unlike anything in galactic history. Human ships appeared and disappeared at will, striking from impossible angles with weapons that the Velarans couldn't even detect until they hit. The massive orbital platforms around Earth fired beams of energy that seemed to reach across space instantaneously, bypassing shields and armor as if they didn't exist. But the most terrifying aspect of the human assault wasn't their advanced technology. It was their tactics. Every human ship moved independently, adapting to battlefield conditions in real time. When the Velarans tried to target them, they simply shifted into different dimensional phases. When alien ships attempted to retreat, human vessels appeared to block their escape routes, having somehow predicted their movements. General Thrax watched in horror as his proud fleet was systematically dismantled by an enemy that fought like nothing he had ever imagined. "These are not the same humans we fought at Titan," he whispered. "What have they become?" The answer came from an unexpected source. On the bridge of the Defiance, Admiral Catherine Torres activated the fleet-wide communication system, her voice reaching every Velaran ship simultaneously. "Admiral Vorthak," she said calmly, "you're witnessing humanity's true nature. At Titan, you fought our miners and engineers. Today, you're facing our military. We are a species that has survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and disasters that would have wiped out most civilizations. We learned long ago that the universe is hostile, and we prepared accordingly." Vorthak stared at the tactical display, watching his ships disappear one by one. "This technology, it should not exist. You are supposed to be primitive." "We let you think that," Catherine replied, "just like we let the galaxy think we were confined to one solar system. The truth is, Admiral, we've been watching you for decades. We know about your empire, your technology, your weaknesses. We've been preparing for this day since our first radio telescopes detected signals from Velaran space." The revelation hit Vorthak like a physical blow. Humanity had not been caught off guard by first contact. They had been studying the Velaran Empire for decades, learning everything they could about their technology and tactics. The defeat at Titan had not been luck or desperation. It had been a carefully planned demonstration designed to make the Empire underestimate human capabilities. "You have been spying on us," Vorthak accused. "For how long?" "Long enough," Catherine said. "Long enough to know that your empire rules through fear and overwhelming force. Long enough to understand that you've grown complacent. You've conquered so many primitive worlds that you forgot what it's like to face an enemy that can think." As if to emphasize her point, another wave of human ships materialized around the Velaran fleet. These vessels were even more advanced than the first wave, their hulls incorporating technology that seemed to violate basic physics. Some ships appeared to be partially transparent, existing in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Others moved through space without any visible propulsion, manipulating gravity and space-time itself. Captain Riley Stone, now commanding the advanced fighter Wraith, dove through the Velaran formation with impossible grace. Her ship's quantum phase drive allowed her to pass through solid matter, emerging inside enemy vessels to deliver devastating attacks from within their own hulls. "This is for threatening my home," Riley said, her voice calm as she fired her reality distortion weapons at the bridge of a Velaran dreadnought. The massive ship shuddered and began to list as its command systems were destroyed from the inside. Supreme Admiral Vorthak realized that his fleet was facing complete annihilation. In less than an hour, over half of his ships had been destroyed or disabled by human weapons that seemed to operate outside the normal laws of physics. His tactical officers were reporting system failures across the fleet as human computer viruses, far more sophisticated than anything they had encountered, infiltrated their networks. "All ships," Vorthak transmitted desperately, "emergency retreat. Jump to hyperspace immediately." But even escape was denied to them. As Velaran ships attempted to activate their faster-than-light drives, they found their hyperspace generators failing. Human ships had deployed some kind of interdiction field that prevented jump calculations from completing properly. "I'm afraid we can't let you leave just yet," Admiral Catherine Torres said, her voice still maddeningly calm. "We need to have a conversation about the future relationship between our species." Vorthak's communication screen flickered, and suddenly he found himself looking at not just Catherine Torres, but representatives from across human space. Military commanders, scientists, diplomats, and leaders he had never imagined existed. The scope of human civilization was far larger than Velaran intelligence had ever suspected. "Admiral Vorthak," Catherine continued, "you represent an empire that has ruled the galaxy through force for thousands of years. But empires rise and fall. Today, you've discovered that humanity is no longer content to hide in the shadows. We're ready to take our place among the stars. The surviving Velaran ships found themselves surrounded by human vessels that could destroy them at will, but had chosen not to. It was perhaps the most terrifying demonstration of power Vorthak had ever witnessed. These humans could have annihilated his entire fleet, but they were showing mercy, proving that their strength was tempered by wisdom. "What do you want?" Vorthak asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "We want the galaxy to know the truth," Catherine replied. "We want every species in Velaran space to understand that there is an alternative to imperial rule. We want them to know that humanity stands ready to defend any world that chooses freedom over slavery." As if summoned by her words, space around the Sol system began to fill with even more human ships. Vessels emerged from hyperspace jumps, from stealth fields, from dimensional folds that shouldn't have been possible. The full might of humanity's hidden fleet revealed itself, stretching across space in formations that defy counting. General Thrax stared at the impossible sight, his mind struggling to process what he was seeing. "How many ships do they have?" The answer came from Dr. Elena Rodriguez, her voice broadcast across all frequencies. "Enough, General. We have enough ships to defend every world that asks for our protection. Enough ships to stand against any empire that threatens freedom. Enough ships to ensure that humanity will never again have to hide from those who would enslave us." Supreme Admiral Vorthak looked around at what remained of his once proud fleet. Less than 50 ships survived, their crews demoralized, and their technology proven inadequate against human ingenuity. The Empire's reputation for invincibility had been shattered in the span of a single battle. "You have made an enemy of the entire Velaran Empire," Vorthak warned. "We will return with everything we have." Admiral Catherine Torres smiled. "We're counting on it, Admiral. The galaxy needs to see what happens when an empire based on fear and oppression meets a species that refuses to submit. Go back to your rulers. Tell them what you've seen here. Tell them that humanity is done hiding." As the surviving Velaran ships limped away from Earth, their hyperspace drives finally released from human interdiction fields, Vorthak continued to stare at the tactical displays showing the impossible human fleet. These creatures had revealed themselves to be far more than primitive savages. They were something the Velaran Empire had never encountered before. A species that had achieved technological superiority while maintaining the cunning and adaptability of natural predators. "Sir," ventured his tactical officer, "what do we tell the High Council?" Vorthak was quiet for a long moment, his 4 eyes fixed on the dwindling image of the Sol system. "We tell them the truth, Lieutenant. We tell them that we have awakened something that should have been left sleeping. We tell them that the galaxy now has a new apex predator." He paused, his voice dropping to a whisper that carried across the bridge.